Just take your shirt off, DJ. I mean, it's your birthday. You should be able to do what you want to do.
My birthday.
Say when.
That's what Doc Holliday said.
Yeah, yeah.
Birthday.
All right, welcome to Southern Two-Lane and another episode of our podcast. We are gathered in the basement again. That seems to be the best place for us together of late. I'm Randy B. This is
DJ Seeley.
This is
Chris Owens.
We were here last time, and we introduced Chris. Today, we're going to introduce
Jeremy Johnson.
Jeremy J.J. Johnson, who is another one of our guys that rides with us, and we get to make fun of, and he gets to make fun of, and we just enjoy and have a blast. But he's going to be joining us on some of these podcasts, or maybe all of them, who knows. But we're excited to have everybody here. It was the most we've ever had has been 3, so now we're 4. Our goal here today, as we kind of get started, if you've been following along, those 2 or 3 of you that follow us, if you've been following along, you know that we kind of introduced a name change, and then we introduced Chris. Now we're kind of getting into catch-up mode, so probably for the next 2 or 3 episodes, we're going to be going over what we've done over the last few months, getting up to kind of, I guess, keeping up with the times as we go forward. So, the last actual podcast about some of the things that we did was we were in Daytona at the spring rally in March of this year and did about 3 or 4 podcasts from there. But since then, we've had some changes and some things happen. At that time, or around that time, DJ bought the BMW GS 1250R.
R1250 GS.
R1250 GS. I'm not a BMW guy. Didn't know all them numbers.
Yeah, I had it down in Daytona.
He did. He had it down, and he rode it. Matter of fact, I took it around the block a couple times, and that's where I first was introduced to a bigger than normal dirt bike. It was a pretty good ride. So tell us a little bit about your thought process and when you got it, because we never really got to have that episode. So let's talk about that.
Okay. So I've got another circle of friends that grew up motocross.
Wait, what?
Yeah, I know, right?
This podcast is over.
He's got other friends.
This podcast is over.
You got a pink slip I can hand him? I don't know.
But they grew up motocrossing and riding dirt bikes. I didn't really venture into that world any. But they piped up a year or so ago. We're like, hey, we want to get adventure bikes. And I was like, well, y'all get one, I'll get one. And so I got the call, I don't know, last December or so. My buddy Brad had bought the KTM 890 Rally R. Pretty interesting bike. If you follow KTMs, they make, I think, 700 of them are shipped to the United States a year. Or maybe 700 of them produced altogether. So it's a pretty rare bike. But that kind of forced my hand to,
Poop or get off the pot.
Yeah, poop or get off the pot. So I had an interest in the GS. I felt like every adventure bike that I went and looked at, everybody always said, hey, this is as good as the GS. This is as good as the GS. And I thought, well, if the GS is going to be the measuring stick, I want the measuring stick. So I bought it
Like the way you
and
thinking.
enjoy it.
Mhm.
And you know, we've ridden a little off road and a lot on road. And,
So I think, and what little I've learned since then is that each one of these bikes, and we'll get on down the road to just recently, Jeremy has purchased a KTM, and I have gotten a Pan America, and Chris is going to be getting into it probably at some point if he wants to, but all of these letters mean something. So
Okay.
the R, you have the trophy, you have the different. Tell us a little bit about what.
well, I'll tell you what I feel like I know to be true.
Okay.
And I don't know I don't know what that's worth, but the R indicates that it's the boxer motor. So it's a horizontally opposed boxer, 1254 cc's. That's where the 1250 comes forward. The GS is German for something I will absolutely butcher it if I try and say it, but
Fair enough.
it just means
Great and superior.
yeah, maybe they feel so.
So everyone says it has ridden one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it just means adventure, off road, or something like
Yeah.
that. But no, I mean that's all that I know about the nomenclature on it.
So it appears that, and since you bought yours and then started talking to Jeremy, I used to ride the dirt bike. I was in the dirt bike world for years, and Jeremy and grew up in all of that. I have thought back many times about some of the things that I did then that I know today I would not do. But I remember, enjoying, and then Jeremy talking about how he wanted to get back into one, and so started kind of looking into it. And yes, it appears that the measuring stick is the GS and the KTM. And to be honest with you, I don't know really which one is, kind of at the top of that measuring stick. I think they kind of each hold their own. Probably to what I guess Harley does in the touring world. I don't know if that's a good comparison, but in 2021, when Harley decided to get into the adventure bike world and introduced the Pan America, it kind of had Harley's name on it. All right, so that was enough to get it out there. But they went through some learning curve. They went through some pains and some growing pains, I guess is what I'm looking for.
I think you could go back. The adventure biking. I feel like guys that sat around and watched the long way around, long way up, long way down, whatever. I think guys found some appeal there.
Mm-hmm.
And when they started that, if you go back and watch them, KTM had the original contract on that,
Yeah,
and
that's
then
right.
pulled out of the deal.
Yeah.
Said, we don't think that you'll be able to complete this,
Yeah.
and we don't want the negative publicity,
Right.
so we're out. And BMW stepped up and provided the bikes for that. And I think that really is what gave the GS the momentum that it has carried for years. I think
see
that was
that.
a marketing mistake for KTM,
Yeah.
and if they could go back and change it, I bet they would.
Yeah.
Well, with the new Pan America, from everything I've read, it's a great bike. And Harley did have a good start, 10, 12 years ago, was it, whenever they had the old motor in there and they made the Ulysses. And, I knew people that rode those, and they were exceptional machines for what they were. So,
Well, it appears that in everything I've read, because, you had the GS, I knew he wanted a KTM, and I was like, well, I'm not buying either one of those, and I've already got two Harleys, and I thought, well, I'm just going to buy the Pan America. So, but I did want to do my studies and everything, and Harley spent about 10 years from that time frame really just investigating on how they needed to proceed forward. And everybody that I've even your GS guys that have ridden both will say that they did a pretty dang good job for it being their first really true adventure bike, and really putting a couple things on it that some of the others didn't have. Not a lot, just a couple of the lowering feature and maybe some other stuff. And then this year they came out with the CVO model. And it's kind of like what you talked about with the measuring stick. Those that own CVOs for the most part, or have with Harley, rarely go back to another bike. And so if you've ever owned a GS, you're probably not going to own a Pan America unless you can own both. KTM probably the same way. But anyway, I think they've done a good job, and I'm looking forward to riding mine. I just recently picked it up, so it's only a couple 3 weeks old, and getting some stuff done. But so you got the GS, spring hits, and we're riding and we're doing some fun stuff, and then all of a sudden, out of the blue, well, not out of the blue, I had been deciding or been planning to go to Thunder Beach spring. You said you weren't going to be able to go. You and I did the fall tour last year, Daytona. Going to do it again this year. These guys are going to join us. But so I had decided I wanted to go to spring. You couldn't go. He was kind of contemplating. It wasn't for sure. Those of you that don't know, Jeremy's married to my sister. So she said that she wanted to introduce me to somebody who could probably ride and go and do, and was looking for
take Jeremy's place.
Take Jeremy's place,
That's
kind
right.
of, you know.
That's right.
We had met, Chris and I had met, I don't know, a few years back.
Yeah.
For just a brief moment. Anyway, so she introduced. We went to one of their where they were playing one night.
Right.
Met. I called DJ up. He says, "Yeah, I think I'm going to go ahead and go. I'm just going to come down, probably leave Wednesday or Thursday, come down for the weekend." And I said, "Well, you've got a riding partner. He's going to meet you at the Shell station. Be there whatever
Surprise.
time." That's right.
Yeah.
And we talked about that a little bit on the last episode,
Right.
of that ride down, and a little bit of the adventures.
Yeah,
sure.
No pun in that. Did we go over that? What exactly
Yeah.
what happened on the podcast?
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Yeah, we did the oil and the what was it, 50 weight, 50 weight, 40 weight?
Yeah, it did wonders for the beard, though,
Yeah,
didn't it?
that's right.
It's great stuff. So Chris came down and DJ, and we rode around and pedaled around in Thunder Beach there in the 1st of May, and then sometime in that mix, you and I and one of your friends did the Saddle Sore 1000. Where we left Birmingham, went to Memphis, and then took 55 all the way to Louisiana, took 10 to Mobile, and 65 back to Birmingham, accomplished that Saddle Sore.
All in 18 hours.
I think we did it in about 18, 19 hours,
Yeah.
1,000 miles. Yeah, that's a pretty big deal. Or I mean, it is if that's something you want to do. And then later in May. And y'all interrupt me if I'm trying to just skip along to the things to catch us up here.
The highlights, yeah.
That's right. And then later we got back from Thunder Beach, and school is ending. You guys were planning your Costa Rica trip. My wife and I were going on our a bike trip, be our second annual. Last year we flew to Vegas and rented a bike. This year I rode from here to Arizona and did the Bun Burner 1500, and then she flew out and I picked her up, and we rode all out west and back, and I'm so far behind in video production, it's not even funny, but I've gotten some of that out, but I think I've released the Bun Burner video, but I'm about to release some of the rest of the ride, as well as some of our Sturgis stuff, so that's forthcoming on the YouTube channel. But that was just a phenomenal ride. I had a little bit of weather going out, but other than that, I don't think we encountered any weather. It got hot at times, but the riding was just phenomenal.
And this
out that
was
way.
all around Arizona?
Yes. We rode from here to Dallas, up to Amarillo, Albuquerque, and came in Flagstaff down to Phoenix. We stayed in Phoenix, rode around, took 10 and I used to live out there, so I'm very familiar with the area. So we took 10 to Tucson, stayed there the night, then rode down to Tombstone the next day, and then rode up and stayed in we rode through Las Cruces. We stayed in El Paso the next night, and then we took 2 or 3 days to get home and just rode 20 all the way up. We got to Dallas and spent the night there, and the road there we have to make a decision. 20 comes through Dallas and comes into West Alabama on the Mississippi down, and then you can take 30 and go into Texarkana and come up to Memphis. Well, we checked the weather. The weather down through Shreveport and that area was not looking too good. So we got up that morning and beat the storm and got out of Dallas, went through Texarkana, went through Arkansas, came into Memphis, and then came 22 back down to into Jasper and back home that night, and got in about, I think it's about 10 or 11 o'clock that night.
Wow.
I think I put about 4,700 miles on the bike in about 12 days. That was fun.
That's
Yeah.
covering some ground.
Yeah, it was fun. Bike ran smooth and everything did good, so I enjoyed that.
At some point, are we going to come back to, like, I'd love to hear some of the highlights of Arizona and some of the things you saw. I know you said a lot of people
we can
ride
talk
out
about
there.
that now if you've got questions. I mean, I didn't want to just trying to touch base with everything. And
I remember you making a comment about a lot of people ride out there, and there was one place in particular. I think you mentioned y'all went to a restaurant or something, and it was all bikes. Or?
so yes, Cave Creek is Cave Creek, Arizona is a little. I think it's like northeast of Phoenix. It's a small town, but it hosts one of the larger spring rallies. Actually, I guess it's a spring rally. It happens right before the end of May. Matter of fact, it had just finished about 2 weeks before we went out there.
Okay.
It is also a 10-day rally. So like Daytona, Sturgis, Myrtle Beach, Cave Creek, they're kind of all, the longer, bigger rallies. Yes, Iron Horse has a location in Daytona, Sturgis, and there's one out there. It's a smaller one.
Okay.
And these are biker bars, if you want to call them that, I guess. And I was talking to DJ while we were out there. A phenomenal place to ride adventure bikes. I mean, I would say, I don't know what it was like during the rally because I haven't been out there yet for the rally. I want to go. But just riding around, the guys and folks that we met said that many people retire that ride and they move out there because of the riding. And in the summertime it's hot, but it's rains, it's rain free 355 days of the 365 a year.
Well,
so lots of riding opportunities, and you're nearby Flagstaff, you're nearby really high point mountains where if it is hot, you can ride to those locations and kind of get cooled off and things of that nature. In Tucson, we rode to Mount Lemmon, which is about that's about a little over 9,000 foot elevation. It was 105 down in the desert floor. We started our elevation, and we didn't even go but about halfway, and we were at 60 degrees.
that's the way it was.
So-
Whenever Dad was out there in Alamogordo, and he went up to Cloudcroft and a couple of those towns up there. It'd be 100 plus down there, and get up there in the mountains, and it's 40 degrees cooler.
That's right.
Like going across Chair Hollow Skyway.
It is. It's the same thing. Yep. Because I know we've all been across that. Y'all been?
Yep.
So going out of Tellico Plains, and it's 90, 95 degrees and whatever. And when we did it that year, it was I was like, we're gonna stop, put on a sweatshirt or something because it's cool.
It was chilly.
Yeah,
Very chilly.
And going out of Flagstaff, we went to Jerome, we went to Sedona, and all of these are elevations of 3 to 5, thousand. So you're really getting a lot of mountainous, cooler riding areas.
Pretty close to Roswell, right?
A little bit further west of that, but not too awful far.
Did you see any UFOs?
That Area 57 was not identified. I will say this though, I did get to stand on a corner in Winslow, Arizona.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And I was not impressed.
No.
No, it is definitely not.
Highly overrated.
Well, I've been there before. I guess I just forgot. But when I did my bun burner video, if you've got a chance to see it, I did that sign, "Welcome to Winslow, Arizona," in the beginning of it with kind of that spaghetti western theme music. But that's about it.
Yeah.
It's just a regular old small town, 1 horse, 2 horse, whatever you want to call it, but it's my bun burner certificate says, that I finished in Winslow, Arizona, and that was kind of my deal about it. So.
And you can legitimately say you stood on a corner in Winslow, Arizona.
If I sing the song, I can sing it because I've been there and done that.
Yeah, okay.
That's right.
You can relate.
That's right. That's right.
You could have been an eagle.
That's right. Exactly. So anyway, I would recommend riding anyway. We want to go back to in the next few years. We want to do Utah, We want to do Glacier National Park, Salt Flats.
Beartooth Pass.
Beartooth Pass. All of that out that way. You could really go a month out there, and I don't know that you could still get it all. But it's pretty good. So.
Yeah, Utah's. I haven't ridden in Utah,
Yeah.
but I've been out there traveling for work and business. But it's beautiful, beautiful state.
It is. We wanted to go to Page. Last year we rode down from Vegas to the Grand Canyon and rode around the north rim, and didn't really get over to the south rim. It's a little bit longer of a trek, and just again phenomenal views. But we wanted to go to Page. We didn't get to last year, but it was going to really be time consuming this year. Plus, if you go to Page, it's right on the border of Utah and Arizona, and you really need to be prepared to stay for 3 or 4 days, because you're not too far from Monument Valley. You're not too far from the Utah. Shelley would know right off the bat, but anyway, there's several beautiful areas up in there to see.
Mm-hmm.
So just riding there and then leaving the next morning or whatever, we thought that would have been a wasted trip.
So let me ask you this: so whenever you plan on going on this trip, so would you ride your Pan America or would you ride one of the CBOs? Because I've got mixed views on that.
Yeah.
Because you know why I bought the
Yeah.
ADB bike.
Yeah.
But I've got a whole show I could talk about on the pros and cons of having a bike to ride coast to coast, but yet you don't have wind protection. You're on knobbies that you got to replace every 2,800 miles. So,
and I think there's some positives, and we've had that conversation. There's some positives in riding an 8-inch, 7 to 8 inch suspension travel bike across country or long distances because of that. But then there's also, some cons when it comes to not weight distribution, but weight versus wind. And I got to tell you, and a lot has to do with seat and bars, because I have not. And those of you that are not watching, we've got the bike sitting here in the basement with us, so we're pointing. But haven't put bars, haven't got my seat yet, so maybe that'll make it a little better. But right now, I am pointing down heavy on my wrists, on the grips, and I have no desire to go hardly anywhere in that mode on that Pan Am. Maybe ride through the backwoods and go to some of our ADB trails around here, whatever. But as far as taking cross country, that's not even a choice for me at the moment.
Well, and the KTM is not right now at the moment, and I don't know, because mine's the 1290R, which is the model really set up more for dirt, even though you could go on highways. But I kind of want to get DJ's opinion, being his size that he is, on how comfortable the GS is versus like the KTM versus the Pan America. Like, how comfortable is the GS for you? Like bone stock, just like it sits. Have you had to have any risers to it or anything?
It's got risers on it. 20 mil risers maybe, which would be about 2 inches.
A couple inches.
Yeah.
It's got a Corbin seat on it. Those were both on it when I bought it, so I didn't put those on there. But to me, it's a very comfortable bike.
How does it do?
If I was choosing a bike to ride for a saddle sore, for a butt burner, for a cross country trip, I would probably choose it out of my garage.
How does it do on the interstate, or not necessarily interstate, but just any open highways above 75 miles an hour as far as buffeting and wind protection and all that?
I don't have any issue with it. I will tell you, now, I do have the adventure model, so it's got the bigger gas tank. It's a little wider than the standard, but the wind protection on it is, it absolutely rivals my Road Glider Ultra Limited in wind protection. Now, a strong crosswind, you're going to feel it more on it, obviously. But, whether it's the Pan America, the GS, your KTM, I mean, those are big bikes.
Yeah.
In the world of motorcycles, those are big bikes.
Well,
they're still bigger than a crotch rocket.
Well, and I've had the KTM now for a little over a week. I put almost 300 miles on it. I've did a lot of two-lane stuff, and I've had it on the interstate. And I love the power part of it. It's got tons of power. I mean, the motor on it's great. Transmission's great.
Good throttle response.
It's scary fast.
Yes.
Coming off of, I grew up riding two-stroke dirt bikes and then got into the crotch rocket world. Had a Harley, got some, mid-size 600 ADV bikes, and they were great, but the power on the 1290 it's scary fast. It's a lot of bike, a lot of motor. And like I was telling you guys earlier, it's kind of a crossbreed, what feels like to me a crossbreed, because it's got the soul of a sport bike literally in a dirt bike frame. So for me, all that being said, I guess is like I'm going to have to change and put a little bit taller windshield on it. There's several out there on the market. But like the bike wants to run, it wants to run 100 or 120 and can easily do that. But anything right now over about 75, it's, you just get a lot of buffeting and it feels very light in the front end, especially on knobbies. So
here's a question I have. What is the difference in weight between like a road glide, street glide, and GS?
350 pounds.
I think my KTM weighs in right around 490, 495, somewhere around
Yours is on the lighter end.
there. Yeah.
Wow.
The GS is 5.5.
Yeah.
Street Glide Special.
890.
Probably 8 1/4, 850 somewhere in there.
Yeah. So it's
limited.
it's about
right
half.
at 900. So,
Yeah.
and I think the Pan Am's about 568.
Okay. So half the weight of.
A little over half. I'd say 60%.
Yeah.
Like and right now, like from my experience on mine, like I said, that's why I really don't understand. Like I love the aspect of the ADVs. I do. I love them, but it's like if you put street tires on it, like the TKC 70s, that's more oriented for street, then really you have a street bike. And yeah, you can ride that bike with those tires on it cross country and it's comfortable. Whereas like, the knobbies that you have, and they make some good knobby tires that's out there that are 50-50 ratio, but they wear fast, they ride rough, they're noisy, and they don't handle like what you would expect them to. So you're kind of subjecting a bike that's like in my scenario, you have the KTM 1290S and you have the R. Well, the S is kind of more like, I guess, geared along the lines of the Pan America, and the GS, it's more tame, I guess you would say. It's got a little bit more electronic features on it, whereas the R is sure enough like a dirt bike. So as much as I would love to ride cross country on mine, I would definitely have to change a few things up to make it happen, make it comfortable.
I would too. I've been across country on and around the southeast, many miles on both of my Harleys, and I don't have any problems. I would do it again, and I would do it on if we were going to do something on the venture ride. I mean, I would ride it as well, but definitely going to be some changes.
Which they all have to be set up, and tailored to your fit, for height.
Yeah, there's no doubt.
And everything dialed in just right. Of course, Chris rode up to Sturgis when we went to Sturgis. I rode back from Sturgis. 29 hours, 1,550 miles nonstop. I was tired, but it's definitely a trip that I could do again on my bike. Right now, as it is, as much as I love the KTM, there ain't no way I could make that trip on.
Well, you bought the Anarchies.
Yeah, so I was going to
And
back
road
up a
around.
little bit. You asked me earlier the difference between the GS Trophy, the GS Rally, and mine is a triple black. For the most part, it's just paint. But they do, off the assembly line, set them up slightly different. The triple black, my understanding, their intention was was road bike.
Yeah.
So it comes from the factory with a straight up street tire. Versus the Trophy or the Rally, really they're going to change tires.
Mm-hmm.
And you get a more of a 50-50 or 80-20 tire on those. But yeah, I took mine with the street tires that were on it off road. Found out really quickly that that was not going to last. Went to the Anarchy Wilds, which were straight up knobby, and though they were much better suited for off road, I didn't like their performance on road.
Right.
It was loud. It made for a rougher ride. The front tire, wanted to swim more.
Yeah.
I just didn't like it, so ended up taking those off and going to the EO7s. They're made by somebody.
It's not Shinko?
No, they're not Shinkos. Midas, MIT.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I've seen those.
Mitas Enduro
Yeah.
EO7s, and so far they have been a pretty good mix for me. But I did find out really quick that bike got really heavy. Though it feels really light coming off of a heavyweight cruiser, and you get on that GS and you go, wow, this is light.
It's so much lighter. Yeah.
You get it off road and you feel that 550 pounds quick. At least for me, I did.
Well, and the KTM is the same way. Like it's, you can get it off the kickstand and roll it around the side of it in the garage just like you could a bicycle, pretty much. But it's like, I got off road on the KTM the other day, and we'd had 3 or 4 days of rain. Everything was soft. This road I went on, it had big, cat head size gravel and all that. It was not hard packed by any means. Well, so on my bike, I've got the TKC Continental Twin Duros, TKC 80s, and they're rated, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, as a 50/50 tire, although that they look like a straight up knobby.
Yeah.
Well, because it was so soft, like the performance, it's still a 500-pound bike with a 2.5-3 inch contact patch, and on soft dirt. So
Yeah.
it's still very squirrely. Like it's not like it's not taking a 250-pound two-stroke across it.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's going to be interesting whenever we do some more rides. Like, I don't know how much I want to subject myself to trying to hold up a 500-pound bike on those kind of road conditions.
Well, I was watching the backcountry discovery guy and some of those, or one of the guys done some of those rides, those BDR rides, the TAT rides, and this one guy's that I've been looking at, I can't remember his name now, but he's been doing a lot of them. A lot of that's done just solo. Sometimes there's groups, but very seldom. It's mostly just an individual that has the opportunity to get away from home or work for a week or a month, and goes off on this ride.
Yeah.
But he's on dried creek beds, a mountain, cliff, like you'd see a mountain bike Olympic, style riding. He's doing his Pan America. He meets up with a guy in a one-horse town somewhere and they ride together for a little while. And this guy's got like a KLR 650 or something small. Like he's just whipping the bob, the back of it's popping up like a dirt bike, like I used to do. You stand up, and it's kind of like when I ride Sea-Doos back. We used to have Sea-Doos, and when you got rough water, I didn't sit down. I rode. My knees were my shocks and my springs. And it didn't matter the water. I could ride over the roughest. I've ridden Sea-Doos in the ocean, same thing. But these bikes, I can tell that I'm not interested at 56 years old of doing that. Do I want to get off road with them? Yes. And I want to find that tire. I'm going to wear these some, but I want to find that tire that gives me kind of a happy medium, whatever that is, if there is one.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to spend $2,000 on another set of wheels just to rotate around when I want to go off road. So, but I know they're out there. You've done the Anarchies. You went back to the ones you've got now. So the Anarchies are at home. They're made by Michelin, the Wilds. But that's Harley's. That's theirs. In other words, Anarchy or Michelin makes the Anarchy for Harley. It's got Harley's little logo. That's what they. If you buy it from the dealer, that's what they put on the Pan America. Besides that tire.
Yeah.
So if you go and say, "Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Part Lady, I want to have some knobbies put on my. What do y'all sell?" We sell the Anarchies. It's got Harley's name on the side of it, and that's all we sell. So,
Well, and the GS, what size is the front rim on your GS?
19.
19. On the KTM models, like if you get that 1290S, it comes with a 19. The R comes with the 21.
which is typical dirt bike size.
Right. So I don't know. Like I said, I really do. I love my bike, and like I said, the power is great. It's just, I don't know. It's kind of a double-edged sword because if you put tires made for the street, then it's going to ride good on the street, and you can carve canyons with it and everything else. But then then the off-road performance, then it takes away from what the bike is built for, which is, riding off-road.
Right.
And if, vice versa, you put knobbies on it, and, then you can't really do what the bike feels like the heart of the bike wants to do on the road.
Right.
So it's kind of it's a weird world. I like the suspension travel. We'll see how it goes. I may keep it, may get rid of it, might get a GS. I don't know.
That's what led me to the KTM 690.
Yeah.
But that I picked it up a few weeks ago. Haven't really gotten a chance to ride it much, but riding the BMW off-road and realizing, okay, for me to feel comfortable with it off-road, I'm going to want more aggressive tires for the traction.
Right.
Now, as my riding skill increased, maybe I could back off of that some, but I feel like a more aggressive tire will make up for a lack of skill, or at least help down that road, maybe. So,
It
but
will build
I
confidence.
just decided, I'm just going to make a decision before I leave the house. What's this ride going to look like today?
Right.
If I'm going to be riding heavily off-road, well, the KTM 690 is, 325 pounds. It's a big dirt bike.
Right.
It can run highway speed. I wouldn't want to do it very long, but if I've got to get to the trailhead via, a road that's going to put me at 70, 80 miles an hour, it's fine doing it.
Yeah.
It's not going to be super comfortable. It's certainly not the bike I wouldn't even want to ride it all the way across town. But getting to the trail, I imagine it's going to be a blast.
Well, and yeah.
I think when you look at, and this is going to sound, I guess, mildly, not sure, I'm trying to think of the word. When you look at, and you and I have had the conversation so many times, we've been very blessed to be able to own multiple bikes, whereas some people have, one, and they're happy with what they've got. They don't know any better. They don't know any different parts. They went to the marketplace and bought them a motorcycle, and it's a Yamaha, it's a Kawasaki, it's a whatever, and they get on that thing with their by themselves or their friends or their girlfriends or what, and they go to dinner and they go on trips, do whatever. If you can't have the opportunity to buy multiples, then if you want to enjoy both worlds, what's the bike and what's the tire?
Yeah. It all falls back to what really you're riding, what riding style you're tailored to for that day. Really, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I do think the GS is a great machine. I have been looking at them for several years, and I think for comfort over the road versus what I own right now in that lineup, I think the BMW would be the better choice to go, like DJ said, across country on. Just mine's geared so much for dirt. Even though it said, even though I could, if you take one off the shelf, this one off the shelf, bone stock, and this one off the shelf, bone stock, it's, as much as I love this one, this would be the better option.
Yeah. When we were in Arizona, back to one of your questions earlier, and something that I was tying the adventures together I was telling him that, not sure what it's about out there during the rallies, but that riding environment out there is rich in adventure biking. I mean, they're everywhere. Even the 690s, the 790s, the 890s, the KTM makes, and then other brands, KLRs, whatever they may be. They're the V-Strom. They're everywhere. That was, I would say, probably, and it sounds like a small number, but I think you guys, being in the motorcycle world as long as you have, and is baptized in it as much as you have, you'll understand what I'm saying and the significance of this number. But I would say probably 3 to 4 out of 10 bikes was adventure bikes
Yeah, that's
out there.
that's a pretty good guess.
And that's, whereas here I think it may be 0.5 to 1. You know, I mean, you know, and I say here, I don't mean Birmingham where we're located. I'm referencing the southeast, or even really, you know, now it's popular in the Chattanooga, Appalachian Mountains, the Blue Ridge Parkway, Tellico Plains, that part of the you know, of the United States. But I mean, really, there's, you know,
It is the ADV world is definitely, I think, well published as the fastest growing segment in motorcycles.
It's definitely becoming
And I've made no
popular.
qualms about it, whether it's the KTM or the Beamer or really even the Pan America in comparison to what we would consider our traditional baggers. I'm of the opinion, and it's mine, I'm entitled to it, right?
I'll let you know.
Those those adventure bikes are easier to manage, ride, manipulate, maneuver, however you want to classify that. They're more powerful.
And all the way around, horsepower and torque.
Horsepower and torque. You know, you would have to spend, I don't know,
I was going to
$10,000
say easily 10,000.
on one of these CVOs to make the same amount of horsepower as that Pan
But
Am
but
does.
it's still not going to respond because you got a 400-pound, you know, weight difference that
Well,
that motor's having to haul around.
And
so.
speaking of horsepower and torque ratings, since y'all hit that topic, so the Pan America is rated at what, 155 on the horsepower and
I think 143 on the torque or something. I mean, it's
oh wow, okay.
maybe-
And the GS is
Comparable.
yeah. I mean, they're all right around the same 150 to 160 horses. And,
Yeah.
And
well,
you know, the
I
torque's
googled mine
pretty-
for giggles, and like 160 is on the horsepower and 101 on foot-pounds of torque.
Yeah,
That's what mine
I don't
is.
think it's when I said 143, that's not right. It's lower. It's on the torque.
But point being, they're more powerful. They're more fuel efficient.
Yep.
They're. You mentioned it before. The GS got 8.1 inches of suspension travel
Yep.
versus my Road Glide Special at, you know,
On a good day?
2.8
Yeah.
inches
Yeah.
of suspension travel,
Yeah.
or somewhere around that number. The comfort's going to be there.
Yeah.
And until 2020, you know, Harley didn't have an offering with traction control. You know, these bikes, you take a GS back to, you know, I don't know when, a decade or better ago, and you get riding modes and traction control and torque limiting stuff.
They're chock full of features. You know, that even the KTM I've got, GS and Pan America's probably got it. It's got lean angle sensors in it that, you know, blips the throttle and cuts it out, you know, which you can turn all that stuff off.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of funny whenever you do, because you get an alert on the screen that says, this is not legal, please turn it back on.
Yeah.
Like from the factory, it tells you right there.
Yeah.
So
Well, and I mean, look, let's be realistic here, because you're exactly right, because, you know, whether you like them or not, you know, in the bagger world especially, I guess, you know, it's a Harley world and everybody else rents space. And, you know, it's they kept old school biking as long as they could. I mean, I'm not going to talk about CEO or board of directors or engineers or decision makers at Harley. I'm just going to talk about old school bikers. I mean, it wasn't even until 2017 they come up with what I would consider with a comparable motor that some motorcycle brands had already had with the M8. I mean, before then we were still twin cam and were for decades. But they were saying it wasn't broke. Why do we need to fix it? We're still selling bikes. So like you said, until 2020, 2021, some of those years down there, they changed the motor, got a little better. They went to some electronics and got a little better. Now these 23, 24 bikes have got ride modes. The ST's got rain mode and sport mode and street mode. And it's almost like a Pan America GS, something like that. So they're coming down the road with it. But I mean, at the end of the day, everything you've said, we've discussed, and is exactly correct. Probably if I was smart and I was going to take off, and I will at some point, take off on another long trip, my smart move would be to leave on that one, on the Pan America. Most likely, I'll go on one of those just because there's a factor that gives me, it's me, again, back to my opinion, that gives me when I'm riding that, than that one does. Because I'm not on it for comfort, I don't guess. I mean, I've made it as comfortable as I can with the money I've got, and I'm happy with that. But again, back to whatever kind of riding we're going to do. So this kind of turned into a little bit of an adventure discussion, and which was great because it was coming at some point or another. I'm doing some stuff to the Pan America. You've got some stuff that you've done that was already done to the GS. You're going to do some stuff to KTM. So we're going to come back probably in another, I don't know, couple months or maybe even less, depending. And we're going to sit down and maybe even break this down even more. We'll talk about more tires. We're going to take some off-road trips. DJ's got another trip planned. Jeremy and I are going to take a couple of weekend trips, day trips, and get off-road a little bit. And we're going to try our best to send Chris into bankruptcy court and go get him
Well,
one.
the big question too, Chris, based on what you know of the bikes that we have, if you was to buy one today, what do you think you would buy?
I don't want to answer that question because I'm going to offend somebody.
This is the last episode that Chris will be on. Say bye to Chris, everybody.
I'm gonna offend somebody. No, I mean I don't have to go into bankruptcy because you guys have multiple bikes. I can just borrow one.
But I don't have a bedroom, so if you lose the house because you bought a bike, that's
Right.
But I'll be honest with you. Before you answer that question, I'm just going to be honest because you're not going to offend me. Because here's the thing: I'll just be straight out honest. Somebody asked me why I chose a certain cam to put in my bike, and I said, well, John Woody, our buddy who was on Ragnar Riders with us, got this cam. DJ's got this cam, and my other bike had this cam, and I bought it because nobody had it.
Yeah, I know where you're going.
All right, so I bought the Pan America because he had the GS and he had the KTM, and I've already got two Harleys. I'm like, eh.
Right.
Nobody else has got one, so let's buy one.
Earlier, well, I already had two Harleys, so I thought, well, hell, I'll just get another Harley.
Yeah.
I'll
Well,
just stick with
and
Harley.
I love them both. Like I love the Pan America. It's a great looking bike.
But it's a different.
And
now
I
you got
thought
to admit,
completely
though.
opposite, though.
Yeah.
I looked in my garage and said, well, I got three Harleys sitting here. I want something else.
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't. Well, let me back up. I was about to just flat out lie to you. I would buy another Road Glide in a heartbeat, just a different color.
Sure.
But if I was going to get an adventure bike, I felt no qualms at all within myself of buying the Harley version, just because I've looked and it holds its own for right now.
No.
Now whether it does that, 5 years from now, I think the GS will be around, the KTM will still be around, will the Pan America be around? Maybe, we'll see. But for now.
So to answer your question, so I've ridden both of their bikes. I love both of them. Haven't ridden yours. Maybe you'll let me someday.
I will absolutely let you.
And so
Be careful, it's fast.
Yeah, right. So I have a measuring stick, and I will probably. I like being different. Kind of the same with the cam, right?
Yep.
It's because none of us have that. So I'm going to test ride several. And like I said, I've got the measuring stick from riding these two. I'll have something to compare, and we'll see.
Well, there are. Go ahead.
Well, and you'll see this whenever you ride the KTM, and I'll let you ride it. No problems there. It is. I'm telling you, it is at least the model that I got. It's a very different machine because whenever you get a straddle of it and you take off, you feel like you're straight up on a sport bike. And then whenever you go to get off of it, you're on your tiptoes and you get off of it and you turn around and look at it, you're like, holy crap, I'm on a dirt bike.
Yeah.
So it's an odd duck.
Yeah.
It's very, very different.
I think, and you can answer the question because you were the first to buy, but I mean, getting on the baggers and getting on that is it's really
Apples and oranges.
It's different.
But I will tell you, I was really surprised at how well balanced both of those bikes. I thought sitting up much higher. Of course, your center of gravity is different. The bike helps compensate for that some, but I was really surprised at how tight I could turn at low speeds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It does pretty good for that. And you see these guys that do this borderline for a living. Some do make money out of it, but I mean, I follow one guy that's he's all of 5'5", a little Asian guy, and I was about to use the term Oriental, but I don't think I can do that anymore. I don't know if that's politically correct.
I think it's still.
Is it
We're in
Asian?
Alabama. So.
Okay. Anyway, so he pulls up to his, stack of luggage. His bare bones. He's got a GS, right? No.
I don't remember. You sent me that video.
No, I think he's got a Pan America.
It may be a Pan
I think it is. And he pulls up, and then he just starts one at a time. Chunk, chunk, lock, lock, chunk, 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 lock, lock. Before you know it, it looks like Santa's sleigh. Right? And he hops on that thing and goes all over the world.
Wow.
So, yeah, I mean, you can ride it like I've got mine sitting over there basically with nothing on it, bone stock, and just zip around here, or, load it down and go across the world. I mean, there's a difference. There's a lot of places that I won't take. I've been in some places with these baggers that I regretted. If I could have made a good U-turn, and a couple times in Sturgis, my first trip out last year, I got in a couple situations where I made some U-turns. If I'd have been on that bike, I'd just kept going.
Yeah.
So my brain goes, well, next time I guess I'll bring it. Maybe, I don't know. But
So right now, gun to your head. Gotta have an answer right now, gun to your head. You've ridden both of these bikes. You've ridden the Pan America. You've ridden the GS. Without hurting anybody's feelings, right now, what would you go with?
If money were no option, or money were no object,
Yes.
I'd buy GS.
A GS.
Yeah.
Did you ride my 690?
I couldn't touch the ground on that thing.
Well, I mean, neither can I.
Yeah.
We might need a ladder for this. What might need?
No, but I felt like that's what I grew up riding. The street trail, dirt bikes, street and trail bikes. That is very comparable to that.
Yeah.
We need to do. Yeah, Chris ride mine, and we'll do a follow up on that.
I felt the same way. I sent him 2 or 3. There was a couple of trophies out there, models that I looked at. And I also looked at the Husky Norden 901 Expedition model.
Well,
I called a guy. I went and looked at one. Like, I really wanted that one. Again, because they were getting the other two. But at the end of the day, I just felt like if I was going to buy one, and I was only going to get one, then I wanted something that I could go across country on if I wanted to, or get off the road on if I wanted to.
Well, and my first cousin, he just bought a Honda Africa Twin. And
I looked at one of those.
He even bought the DCT, the automatic. I've ridden motorcycles all my life. I've ridden one of those DCTs. I don't like it. They're not for me. I'll tell you that.
Did he buy? So RPM up in Dodge City, not too far from us, a motorsport place. Anyway, they had one, and I went back and looked at it. Cool looking bike. I didn't get to ride it, but it's a very cool looking bike, and I've read a lot about them. They
get high marks.
Yeah, the Transalp and the African Twin are 2 of the more, I guess, popular selling adventure bikes under the GS and KTM and kind of Pan America models. And then you get the KLRs, and that kind of all fits right there together. But they're very, very popular. KTM makes what they make: Husqvarna, KTM, and Gas.
Yeah.
So usually if you buy one of those, you're really buying, I guess, a version of one. But yeah.
And then there's the Outlier. What was the name of that? The model when you and I went to the dealership and you test drove that one bike trying to cut a deal on it.
That Suzuki.
The V-Strom.
VRZ.
Yeah, V-Strom.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, I had a V-Strom 650
Yeah.
3 or 4 years ago,
Is that what
and
it's
honestly,
called?
it was a great machine. I would say, I had it outfitted with Shinko like 777s. They were I don't know, 60/40 tire. And I rode it back and forth up and down the interstate. I had a taller windshield on it. Wind protection was great. Power was good. Did it feel like a sport bike? No. But was it a good bike? Absolutely. So if a 650 is that good, I can only imagine the improvements and power and everything that they made on like the 1000s.
Well, they did have a V-Strom at Mountain Sports in Gadsden. He and I went. I've been there a couple of times, but we went up one day and they had a 1090 or 1050. V-Strom, whatever model. It's one of those 10 series, 1000 series. I got on it, cranked it up, and it's
a lot of motor. It's a lot of motor for the bike.
Good, yeah. So
it churned good. I think it redlined at 11 or 12,000. It run good. Good power
all right,
delivery.
so your trip is coming up in a couple weeks, and tell us a little bit about that, and we'll wind this episode down.
All right, so we'll be leaving out next Thursday, the 26th. Not sure when this will be airing, but the 26th of September we'll be heading up to Kentucky to the Red River Rumble, Red River something, Red River Valley Gorge.
Red Rover, send
Yeah.
Johnny
DJ.
right over.
Yeah.
That's right. Okay.
I think that's up there where
But
they
it's,
filmed the horror movie, actually, too.
Camp out through the and trails through the Daniel Boone
National Forest
Backcountry
or whatever.
Discover Route.
Yeah.
It's not a BDR, I don't think. Maybe portions of it are on a BDR or something. I don't know, but
Is this one of those things where you show up, you camp, and you just decide where you want to ride, or is it like
so
group
they've
rides?
got
Or
D all the above. I think they've got some organized group rides that you can choose to join in on, or they have some published routes that they recommend in the area, and you can take those at your own pace. So
Okay.
me and a couple buddies will be heading up there. Got a little Airbnb to stay in. That's right off the Daniel Boone Byway, and just spend a couple days hitting some adventure / dual sport routes.
right on.
Keep us posted.
Sounds
I want
fun.
to see some of that stuff.
You need to. I need to give you one of the cameras to take again, so you can do some video footage.
Yes, definitely.
Get some.
Love to see
get
some
some
of that.
footage.
Yeah.
We'll put that out there. In the meantime, if you like adventure riding, or if you have a bike, when you see or hear, when you see the video, if you hear the podcast, you may not be able to do comments, but if you see the video of the podcast, down below, make some comments about what you ride, what you like, things you think's good for what you do. Would be interested in hearing it. We are on TikTok at Southern Two Lane, Instagram at Southern Two Lane, YouTube at Southern Two Lane, Facebook at Southern Two Lane, and it is Southern, the number 2, and Lane, all one word. Guys, appreciate you being here. Enjoyed it. Have fun.
Yes,
Southern
sir.
Two Lane out.